We're going to talk briefly about what the purpose of the project is. What are we trying to solve with this project? We're going to then walk through the area and the elements of the project through looking at the project setting and the issues around that we have to overcome to build such a trail and a bridge structure. And then we'll talk about themes and ideas on perhaps triggering some nice ideas that you can then provide us feedback on. Because right now we don't have a strong direction or a set design idea. It is about hearing from you and incorporating what's best for the city of Fremont. So, and at that time, after we've done this presentation, then we'll go into the opportunities for engagement and input like I explained on the previous slide. So with that, the project purpose is to overcome the barriers for non-motorized circulation, including the Union Pacific and BART rail corridor and the I-680 that more or less bifurcate several pieces of Fremont from each other. And the purpose is also to increase this connectivity by providing direct, convenient, and safe routes for bicyclists and pedestrians to access the future Irvington BART station, as Rajiv said, the East Bay Greenway, the Sabercat Historical Park and Trail for those members that are on west of those corridors, the East Bay Regional Park District, the Ohlone College, Fremont residential communities and business centers can be joined without adding traffic to your roadways. This can be an alternative access to connect the community at large. And so here is a little overview of the development process. What we are going to go through in order to develop the ideas and the concepts for the long history of the project. But we start very early on in this phase, project initiation. As you can see, those locations in orange are where we will come back to you to gather more input and more reactions or review of the status of the project. So here we are now gathering existing conditions. So we have had surveyors go out to the site and gather information on the biology and the hydrology of the site and such. And we are also looking at what were the original concepts to this project. And not that we've developed those, because we're here first to listen to you. After we listen to you, we intend on coming back later this summer and showing you the concepts that we've developed based on the input and based on the constraints of the sites, and getting further input and reaction to those. Then my group, I have a team of analysts and scientists that will record the environmental impacts were we to construct this process, this project. So the operational impacts, the construction impacts, the change to the transportation system, all of those will be recorded into an environmental document for your review for approximately 30 days. After we hear your comments and respond to those comments, then we will be presenting to the City Council, and they will choose to adopt the CEQA document or not. Assuming they do adopt it, assuming everybody feels comfortable to move forward, then the project will go into final design, and they will continue to look for funding resources before moving on to construction. So as you can see, you are an integral part of this project, and we will be listening to you every step of the way. So to provide a little project context, this scoping report was published in 2018, and Mark Ashley, our esteemed project manager from TYLN, will walk through the project elements.
Thank you, Jody, and good evening, everybody. As Jody mentioned, the very impetus of this project was this scoping report that was published at the end of 2018, and I think has been available on the project website for review by the community. What this report really did was it analyzed the feasibility of the project and kind of created somewhat of a vision for the project, and then also established some budget information on what it might cost to design and construct the project. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be presenting tonight is right out of this scoping report. So if you've already reviewed it, it might be a little redundant, but for those that haven't, we will walk through the project. So first, this is a map out of the city's bicycle master plan. And the point of this is that our project shown here, the circle toward the top, is one of 3 major pedestrian overcrossing projects on either 680 or 880 that the city is working on concurrently. So we are one of the 3. Next. Okay, so this map just gives you sort of the lay of the land. We have 680, we're on this big curve here where we're going to be crossing. We have the Sabercat Historical Park off to the east, to the right side. We have an area of land on the west side of 680 that I'll be talking about, currently owned by Caltrans. And then you can see OSGOOD Road sort of going north to south where the East Bay Greenway is proposed to go. And then the UPRR BART corridor. And while the trail is really extending, from Sabercat Historical Park from the east to the west, we're going to discuss the project starting from the west and moving to the east. So next slide. And we're going to cover it in 4 basic parts. This first part from the entry at the end of BLACOW Road west of the railroad corridor, where we'll have an entry plaza, and going over to OSGOOD. Next. This area kind of in the middle that covers that area of Caltrans owned property where there is a proposed future paleontological museum. And so our scope of work is to clear the environmental for that museum site, but we won't be doing the final design of it as part of our project. We're only going to be designing the main path from BLACOW over to Sabercat Historical Park. Next. So this next section is just the actual overcrossing itself and the connection to Sabercat Park. And lastly, on the north end, this is also a future phase of the project that we're only clearing environmental for now and not doing final design of. And this will be a trail extension that goes up to the north and connects back in with OSGOOD across from the proposed Irvington BART station. Okay, so we'll start off here with section 1. Once again, on the left-hand side here, this would be the west end of the project where we connect to that turnaround on BLACOW and proceed to the east. We will cross the railroad tracks, either going under or going over. The scoping report had focused on having what we would call an underpass, which would go under the tracks. Our initial discussions with the railroads are that they would obviously be concerned about impacts to their operations. So we're also going to study the possibility of going over as well. The path then continues on through on the other side of BLACOW. And we have the businesses on the north side, the Azevedo Center businesses, and to the south is the City Maintenance Center or a corp yard. And then we're going to be crossing OSGOOD Road. We're going to be doing an improved intersection here that would be a protected intersection that would separate bicycles and pedestrians and provide a safe crossing of OSGOOD. And then I'll talk about the remainder of it in the next section. So these are just some examples from other projects of what we would call an underpass. May look a little bit like a tunnel. It could be a little bit more open. And of course, these tunnels can be made larger so they have, a better sense of security, a more, I guess, comfortable feeling as far as going through them. And that's what we would be probably looking at for this project. Next. These are examples of an overhead going over the railroad tracks. And all of these actually are showing what we call a prefabricated steel truss structure that can just be set in place very quickly and would really have very minimal impacts to railroad operations during construction. Next. So moving on to section 2. We will, after crossing Osgood with that protected intersection, the path will parallel a future access road for motorized vehicular traffic and go over into the site of the future museum. And once again, this is from the scoping report. The museum building is shown kind of to the bottom. It's sort of that purple curved rectangle. And then on the bottom picture, that was just a rendering that was in the scoping report of what the museum building might look like. It's 40,000 square feet with a 90 space parking lot. And once again, we'll just be clearing environmental for that. This red squiggly line you see through the middle of the site is the Hayward Fault. And so it's a really important consideration for our design. We don't want to put any structures on top of the fault, and we want to stay as far away from it as we can to minimize the impact on, you know, the design of the structures. The third section here is the overcrossing, and so this will be, you know, the structure going over 880 and providing continuity across either side. As Rajiv mentioned earlier, on the east end, there will be a plaza type area. This is a pretty high spot in the terrain with excellent views across the city over to the bay. So this will be a really nice feature, nice amenity. And then those little orange lines actually are going to extend further, and there's going to be a paved trail that goes from the landing of the overcrossing or the bridge and connect up with the existing paved trail that terminates, I think it's about 750 feet to the east. Next. And once again, out of the scoping report, here are a couple of sort of graphics showing 2 potential possible bridge types for spanning 680. It is a wide freeway, so there are going to be some long spans required that may require some special type of structures. That's something we'll be studying. And we're really looking for community input on the bridge type. And we're hoping that you'll go and take the survey and also provide comments on, you know, your suggestions or what you think is appropriate for this site as far as the bridge goes. Next. And section 4 on the north end, once again, is the future extension of the trail going up toward the proposed Irvington BART station. So next slide. And this is just basically a cartoon that shows how that trail may align. We're assuming it's going to be following this kind of green belt that also corresponds with the extension of the Hayward Fault. There's a pretty steep slope right there. And I think it's envisioned that this path or trail would be benched into the slope and cross Sabercat Creek with a small bridge down toward the bottom, and then extend over and turn and tie into Osgood Road across the street from the BART station. And with that, we're going to get into the fun part and talk about the design process with our project architect, Noel Shamble. Noel, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks, Jody, everyone else. Yeah, hopefully this is the fun part for you as well, but I definitely get a kick out of it. So I'm going to walk you through what our design process looks like for a signature structure here at TY Lin. We've done this numerous times and developed a really nice process that helps us take into account the flexibility needed to respond to every site specifically. So we call that a context-sensitive design process. What that means is we try to look at the full context of every project site. So not just the structural engineering requirements, but also, you know, the human side of things, the culture, the history, the values, and of course the environmental side of things as well. So we want to put that in a big mixing bowl and curate a nice specialized design that responds to the site as specific as possible and therefore makes it unique to you guys. So to do that, we start off with a theme. And so this is where we want to kind of coalesce all of our ideas about the character of the site, the values of the town, what makes your community unique. And here I'm showing you an example project that we did for a small little pedestrian bridge down in Santa Monica, California. It's right there on the bluff of the beach. And so we have a lot of nice themes about waves or diving boards or fossilized shells in the cliff beds there. And so after we kind of brainstorm these initial ideas, we workshop those out into sketches where we start to marry those artistic ideas with the structural ramifications of the realities of the site project. And you can see those start out sometimes as little hand sketches or rough 3D models. And then through an iterative process where we work back and forth with our engineering design team, as well as the stakeholders, the city, back to the community, we'll start to flesh out what everyone's favorite concepts are, which ones are proving to be successful from a aesthetic standpoint, an engineering standpoint, and a cost standpoint. And you can see as we go towards the bottom there, as they get whittled down, the images get a little bit fancier. We'll start to do some fun virtual reality and 3D printing and things like that as we go. And then in the end, hopefully, our end product is a unique structure that has successfully navigated that nice little stair step. And if you go to the next slide, so like I mentioned, you know, this all is based on this idea that every site is unique, and because every site is unique, we believe every project solution should be unique. Here's just a smattering of some of our pedestrian bridge projects throughout the US. There's many more we could show you, but you can see here the variety in the structures. For example, in the upper left there is maybe one of our simplest designs. That's in the Belmont neighborhood over 101 freeway. Next to that on the right is a much more extravagant design down in San Diego. That's a self-anchored suspension bridge. So really, structurally, the world is our oyster. We can try and marry that with whatever aesthetic and thematic designs you guys respond to us with. And if you go to the next one, looking more locally here, for example, we are currently working on another pedestrian bridge in Fremont. Mark mentioned that there's currently 3 underway by the city, and Sabercat is one of them, and another is the Innovation Bridge, which is there over 880 by the Tesla factory. And so this one is in the Innovation District, and so the theme there, for example, is, of course, innovation. And so this is a very fast and swoopy and highly structurally gymnastic solution that will be very eye-catching and a really exciting project to be working on. And so now we kind of take that idea to this project for the Sabercat idea. You know, we want you guys to help us think about what a good theme would be to kickstart this design process. So, you know, you saw those initial sketches in the scoping report study. Those are really just kind of purely simple, simply structural responses of spans that could cross this alignment. But we really want to put that to the side for a second and dive deeper and get to the heart of what the character of this project wants to be from your standpoint. And there's, of course, some natural themes that we thought of to kickstart this discussion. Of course, the Sabercat identity is really unique to the site, and it's something that would be very fun to play with architecturally. That could be, you know, more of a rustic and rural kind of idea, or it could be more of a geometric and sculptural type of solution. You also have this just purely beautiful natural setting that this trail connects to. So something that fits in with that landscape would be great. And of course, you know, Fremont as one of the cornerstones of the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, kind of tech hub, and, you know, maybe leaning into that, that kind of more modern and contemporary type feel might be another way to go. So really, these are just some ideas to whet your appetite, and we hope that you can respond and give us some feedback. And really, we're just kind of half the team here. You guys are the other half, complete the picture for us. And so we really rely on your specific feedback to give us that unique input. So thank you all very much. And we look forward to seeing your future participation.
Great, thank you very much, Noel. So like Noel said, this is your time. We have here outlined the 3 opportunities for your input over the development process. And we're just to reiterate that right now we want to collect your input, and today during this meeting is one of those opportunities. But we have a survey which also provides opportunity for written comments within the survey so that you can elaborate on your answers or make unique answers inside that survey. And that will be posted on the website following this meeting this evening. And it will be up there through July 10th. That doesn't mean that's the limit of when, of providing our comments, but at July 10th, we'll be gathering those survey comments and looking through them to see if we start to see common themes and issues that we want to respond to. And we will respond to all of them, of course, but just to make sure we get your input and have kind of a deadline more or less. So that's 2 weeks from today. But you can also provide, of course, emails and or written comments. And then we'll be coming back later in the summer with some of the concepts that Noel has created with our engineering team. And so please do provide your email if you'd like to be invited, or if you already have, great, we will let you know when that meeting comes about. And the website will, of course, be posting these updates along the way. And then finally, later on in more like 2021, in the early January, February, March timeframe, we intend to have an environmental document for you to review and comment upon. So let's go through the next slide, please. It's very important to understand your opinions, but I also want to remind you that there are ways to actually influence the project. And so I'm just providing a list of 4 themes here that really do substantially help us. And that is, if you were to comment on the project purpose and need, the objectives of the project, your interest or your lack of interest, and why, most importantly, why, so we can understand how much this project might affect you. What are the issues that do you feel that it would engage more activity or less activity, or will it affect your environment? What specific environments are you interested or concerned about? And any sort of site information that you feel like we should know. We are surveying the site in a lot of detail, both from archaeological to biology, to, like I said, hydrologically, but things that are unique that you know about, and we would welcome that input.